Yes. Okay, we're live.
Thank you, Ashley. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the first panel chat of 2026 on the subject of 2026. We have some new members joining us this year, including Sage. And we also have an announcement to make, and that is that I'm excited about this. The panel chats are going to become a podcast. So we'll formulate everything into a nice package. All the past panel chats will be sort of refigured and put into podcast form, and then they'll be available on all of the podcast platforms. And we'll let you know when that goes live through my newsletter, on the pages of the individual panelists, and we'll be ready to go. So thank you for joining us today. We wanted to begin with a moment of silence to assist with the anchoring in of peace and love and compassion and light onto this planet at this time. I think that most of the panelists here have as at least part of their mission to hold the peace, hold the light here in this lifetime, and that we came for this journey. So if you'll join me in taking a deep breath, closing your eyes if that feels right. Thank you so much. And I would like to add a personal prayer of love and comfort to everyone who might be struggling at this time. Thank you so much. Welcome, panelists. Welcome to 2026. Wow. I was wondering if you would like to introduce yourself and today maybe tell us a little bit about, if this anchoring of the light and anchoring of the peace and the vision of the future is part of your mission, or some part of your mission. So I'd like to begin with Ashley.
Hello. Hi, my name is Ashley, located in the Sedona, Arizona area, and absolutely anchoring the light. Uh, I've really been feeling a lot of creating the energy of ease. How can we find ease as we're anchoring in that light? So that's definitely connected to my mission.
Thank you so much. Lisa,
All right. Do I need to unmute myself?
you're unmuted.
Okay. Um, yes, anchoring the light for sure. This last year has been um, a great journey of slowing down a lot in order to be that clear channel to a degree that it's just so beautiful. Just deep slowness when needed and honoring that and allowing that to be a gift to my life as well because slowing down really is something I've always wanted. So it's been great to honor that and be that and just trust that even in my alone days and in my meditations or just in a kind smile at the grocery store to someone, that in itself is anchoring the light.
I love that, Lisa. Thank you so much. And welcome back to the panel
Thank you.
chat.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Jenny?
Hello, everyone. Merry 2026. I've been working in the space of relationships for almost 30 years now, marriage, intimate partnership, sex and intimacy. And I do believe that I came originally, to broadly anchor in the light. But what's always been interesting to me is how it is that we embody what we would call love and light when you're married and angry with your partner and you have money issues and your child hasn't slept for a week and like how to the like army crawling our way in those moments of being that light and love in the moments which is usually in our most intimate connections, whether that's a colleague or best friend or someone we've worked for or a partner, like in those moments when shadow flies in our face, like how do we do it then? So that's been my work and obsession, I would say, for many decades. And so, yes, anchoring in that light in the chop wood, carry water of relationships for sure.
I love that. And that's so it's so you can see that in the collective that this need for the healthy and the healthy expression of all the emotions is really coming forward for.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's a beautiful going to be a beautiful perspective for us.
Mhm.
Sage?
I'm Sage, and I think that I've been anchoring the light through connecting to like mindful presence, I like to call it. And I agree with Jenny. I think, most of the challenges for me are around anchoring the light for my family, for my clients. I'm a mental health therapist. And for me, it's more through embodying, that light. Becoming present in like a non-judgmental, kind, curious way, in a compassionate way, and then permeating that out to others.
I love that. Beautiful. Thank you and welcome to the panel chats. Megan?
Hi, yes, what a beautiful phrase, anchoring the light. I mean, I don't know if it was in the pre-communication, but I feel like this just like got dropped down on me like, whoa, anchoring the light. It's so simple, and I'm already feeling a theme that like so many of us have already suggested, this like slowing of pace, this quieting down, this being content, right, with inward dwelling and for me, what I have found is it's been very difficult to do the because of the noise and the chaos and this constant assault of trying to disconnect us from one another in numerous ways. And so for me, anchoring into the light has been a process of just remembering and reminding myself over and over again through the various tidal waves of 2025 that it is always boiling back down to the simplest biological things, sleeping and resting um, and not uh, uh, releasing those connections to FOMO, like the busyness and like all of these things that this narrative that's being constantly forced, that to just look at someone and say, are you drinking water? And you blow someone's mind open because you said, are you drinking water? I mean, that's where we're at. And so the light right now for me is really basic. It's very seasonal. It's very much nature oriented. And when you say the light, it's just the sun, the sun, the sun, the sun. And so for me, being the light has required an immense amount of earth connection, of connecting myself to the earth so that I even have the bandwidth, to share that with others. And so I'm just trying to be myself and just be the simplest, be in the simplest state so that there's some sort of illumination coming through.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hmm.
That's such a
Hmm.
powerful reminder. Cerise?
Hi, I'm Cerise. I'm based in the New York tri-state area. And for me, I agree with what everyone else has been sharing so far about anchoring in the light. Um, Today, I've been thinking about other ways from a health and diet. As you start with January, you think about, New Year's resolutions and things like that. And anchoring the light to me, in addition to what everyone shared, is also to eat more light. So eat more berries and raw foods and bring that into my body to start activating my light body even more. So that's what my focus is going to be, personally for this year.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Jade?
Hello. Thank you, Jade from Prescott, Arizona. But I love this question so much because when we say words like light and peace, yes, I believe that's part of why I was here, but I think the way that I am doing that is I've always been asked to like radically accept or be with or be present to like the sensations in my body, the emotions that I'm feeling, which doesn't always feel like light or peace, but it's the more that I've been asked to radically be with the entire human spectrum of joy and grief and pain and pleasure and like all of it. I think that that's how I've been anchoring my version of peace and light. And I try to do that with my kids and my family and just really being with all of the human experience because we are peace and we are light. Like that's the truth of who we are. But then we come into this world and it's very easy to forget. And so yeah, that's my feelings on that.
Thank you, Jade. I think that's such an important point that the light is actually, it is sunlight, it is goodness, it is all the love and all the good stuff, but it's also this transformative force, this spotlight that clears the shadows that can be sort of tumultuous and scary and all of the things. So I think that's just a beautiful sentiment to share. So thank you for that. And while you're here, I'll stick with you. So I like to begin any sort of new year slash passage with some reflection on what has occurred, just to make sure I understand it in a certain way. So I'm wondering if you could share with us what your take was on the overall energy of 2025 and what that was collectively and also in your life.
Yeah, that's so good. I was even having all sorts of experiences reflecting on 2025. Um, so I'll start with myself and then I'll kind of move out. But 2025 for me was like it felt like a momentum leading up to 2025 where there's all this shedding. And I know it was the year of the snake and all of that, which I feel like was true for the collective. But for me, it was like a total dismantling even further that I thought I'd already been doing for the 2 years of, hey, you think you know this? Like, just kidding, you don't. Like, hey, you think this is how your life's supposed to go? So for me, it was constant surrender and letting go. And this bringing back to what does it really mean to observe and take every single clue, not in a way of searching, but like what's real, like what's actually happening in my reality. It's not about the vision boarding and it's not about what I want. It's like, let me distill it to the actual epicenter of what's real, and maybe then I can build. And what I'm already starting to see. So for me, 2025 was, I don't know the word to say it, a humbling, a dismantling or dissolving. And I believe that I've witnessed in the collective, there's been a lot of that, right? Where what we thought was true maybe isn't anymore. And there's just been a lot of change when it comes to, I think, how the collective is operating or wants to operate. So um, that's my spiel on that.
I've also been focused and advising others to focus on the fruit of their lives, that's actually, everything you basically need to know about who you are, where you're going, what you need to resolve. It's all there right in front of you. You don't have to go looking very far. So thank you for that. Ashley, I was wondering if I could ask you, you are an extraordinary tarot advisor, and so I'm wondering if you have a sense of what the overall theme was that we're leaving.
Thank you for that. I do tarot, and I did a lot of sessions actually in 2025. And overall, I very similar to what Jade is saying. It felt like 2025 was sort of like feeling too tight in your clothing, like a restriction, like a, and I know the metaphor of the snake and all of the things, but I think a lot of inner self-reflection and asking the question, does the nature within you align with the nature around you? And so if something is too tight or you're feeling too confined in one area, how do you start to push those boundaries to expand into the truth of who you are? And the thing about tarot is that everything that you're sharing with other is a reflection of what's happening within you as the person who's reading the cards. And so I found that mirror was very, very present within my own life and my own reality is where am I playing too small? And where am I actually like what am I growing into, and how can I create space for that? Um, yeah, definitely a dance with the shadow in that way.
Wow, that's really a courageous endeavor. If everybody's stuff is in your closet, like wow, yeah, I don't know if I could do that. Sage, I think you also have an interesting perspective because you do have access to kind of like more of the collective and what people are dealing with and what their themes are. Can you share a little bit of that?
I think what I noticed in 2025 in my own personal life as well as with my clients is that there was a lot of attachment wounding showing up. And I think that's the mirror that Ashley was talking about too, that I saw is that other people are mirroring back to us what that wounding was in relationship, in the context of relationship. Um, and I felt like those attachment woundings and seeing them were like a catalyst to really questioning, who am I really? What's my identity? What's my true identity there? And we needed to go through those layers, of the attachment wounding and see that in order to get to that place, and to connect to more of our essence and shed all those false identities.
Very powerful. And I suppose that that could be viewed as an unraveling, which it is, but in a positive sense. Like it has a positive aspect to it because you're getting more to the truth, right? Were people able to see that as a positive, or were they just, kind of in the difficulty of it?
They were in the difficulty of it and it was very painful. But we kind of all need guides to help us through that. I think that when we're caught up in our own attachment woundings, it's very hard to take ourselves out of that. We don't necessarily see it clearly at times. So having guides, teachers, whatever, I think is really important, to help us through that. So, I hope that I was able to hold space for my clients to be able to get to the other side. But yeah, with the, shedding the skin, I think about how it can be painful sometimes to, shed. But we need to go through that pain in order to get to the other side. So yeah, it was painful, but I see courage in people all the time. Courage to face these things, and have the resilience to do it.
Love that. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'd love to hear from Jenny because you also work with a lot of people. Can you share a little bit about what you're seeing in the collective and also in your own life?
Absolutely. And I'll take the baton from Sage. Very similar. My demographic, it generally is women 40 to 60, which I think of as the wise woman portal, commonly known as menopause, right? When we are in this portal of deconditioning. So what I've been seeing is a lot of women, but I think it's it's specific to this age group of who I work with, women who have been trained as attorneys or maybe have been homemakers, whatever their life has been, and then recognizing, wait, this isn't who I am, right? It's what I do. And so then the deconditioning of looking at how maybe I went to school or got the degrees in order to get the attention or to have an experience of control, right? Often as women, we try to control our world so that we can feel safe, right? And so through that exercise of controlling, we're trying to get safety. But then often if we hit midlife and we've had all the control, but we still don't feel safe, then there's that unraveling that happens that invites us to look at ourselves, look at our shadow, right? What is it that we're not willing to see is often what's running our lives. And so a lot of willingness to be with what's not working. That's what I've seen, because the people who I serve are saying, this isn't working. Usually I can read a book or hire somebody or do the thing to move the ball down the field. And I'm recognizing that that linear path is not going to serve. And so then the surrender to what Jade was speaking to, that surrender of, I guess I'm going to need to float, which I believe is that the invitation into the feminine. There's been a lot of conversation for the last 40 years that the future is feminine. And the feminine does not behave like the masculine, which is like linear and fast and direct and even like visioning. It's much more creative and, circumambulating. I mean, it's really different. And so if we really want to bring in that feminine in our future, then we have the invitation to do it in ourselves, which requires spaciousness, shedding, letting go, yielding, listening to the body. Because of the people who I work with, a lot of women whose bodies are breaking down, to me, it's signaling, guess what? I'm not doing this anymore. Like Ashley spoke to, like this container is not going to take it, which is not a bad thing. It's an invitation to surrender to the migraine or the back pain in order to unravel how it is that happened, because it didn't just start usually right now. It's been years in the making of how it is that we've been encouraged, myself included, been encouraged to take the torch and run, regardless of how it's impacting my emotional, spiritual, physical body, as long as I get to succeed. So I'm really seeing that narrative just disintegrating with the people who I serve. And it's exciting. And we are in the fertile void, women, the unknown. We don't know how it's going to go. We don't know. Right. And so it's good to link arms with one another and just be like, okay, here we go.
I think that's such an important point to bring up, is that because I see that as well, especially in younger generations, because I have 4 children. The willingness or the awareness that when something's not right, there's an opportunity to change it. And I think in generations past, they just assumed, many of us assumed that it was your fate, and you carried it no matter what, and didn't necessarily question it. So even though it looks collectively like it's a big mess and everybody's suffering, it's also this very positive occurrence that we're actually breaking through to take more control and not take more control, but to become more aware of the factors influencing our lives. And I think that's such a positive thing. I want to ask Lisa, because when you mentioned that you'd been spending so much time slowing down and in the quiet, what in 2025 was a surprise to you, what you were sort of anticipating that it was going to be, and what it eventually became. Oh, and I muted you, Lisa. There we go. Hold on one sec. Yeah. There we go. Sorry.
Thank you for that question, Kay. You know, one of the things that surprised me the most about 2025 was the way I was encountering communication with other people. It was kind of like this breakdown of translate, like the Tower of Babel. It was very clear to me that it was no longer I was no longer operating with people, whether that's my clients or in intimate relationships, my daughter, her father, that the margins of meaning, of rationality were no longer there. There was this new place of heart-centered presence that was required in every conversation, or else whoever was involved was speaking two totally different languages, even if it was English. That really surprised me. I don't know if anyone else I know other people experienced it, but and then what didn't surprise me, what it was walked hand in hand with that, was this new level of connection that I was finding with these people, even strangers. And of course, that works hand in hand because we're dropping out of the ego and out of the mind and out of the thoughts and into just the feeling, the heart, and I found that that was the place where I could genuinely listen. And I didn't know how this anticipation, I anticipated that there would be this deeper warmth from human to human, but how would that happen? And here it was, just that breakdown dissolving, like Jenny said, of the programming, the normality of where I was operating from when I was trying to receive someone's message or convey my own. That was really, really wonderful. And so, and of course, the result is what we're all talking about, this slower pace. So my cadence inside of a conversation sometimes is just so slow that I've had to release some self-judgment or embarrassment, and also be that for other people. When I work with clients, I have found that it's important that I have the courage to be so authentic because they need to see that. My daughter needs to see that. We need to kind of say the things that we're afraid to say because it opens up the doors. And just in an example of how that was challenging for me was, speaking with my daughter's dad, or my clientele is in general a mix of men and women. And when I step into conversation, I do movement medicine and somatic release and things like that. Injury rehabilitation is probably my most entry level experience, uh, offering. And so when men will come into my studio thinking they need some rehab on their shoulder, but more is present, more needs to be said. And so rather than truncating and marginalizing what it is that I offer, saying the things that might bring a grown man to a very tender spot, and they won't like it. And kind of being that David in the presence of Goliath, this is just a giant right now, you know, and I can take this on. So facing my giants and watching them reduce to this beautiful, just authentic um, place in my heart, connecting with others.
Wow. Wow. That's so incredibly powerful. And I want to just ask you if, I think this is what you're saying, but are you saying that you being heart-centered, in heart-centered presence and communicating from your heart, activates or alchemizes a change in the people you're interacting with?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Kay, for saying it in that way, that higher delivery. Yes, it it humbles the whole atmosphere and brings it to this level. Um, it places the whole connection onto a foundation that somehow disables the ego quite a bit and takes out that interference, that is no longer needed and doesn't serve human connection anymore. And it's a really beautiful place. And at first, it was hard to anchor that and stand in that in conversation because the ego wants to flare up. Um, but now just going there and after, this beautiful year-long practice of this, knowing how to really stand in that, be stable in a conversation that may have made me truly quake in my boots a little bit or feel uncomfortable or self-conscious or something like that. And just know, I just need to hold this frequency, like holding a baby until they feel comforted. It's kind of like that in a very simple-minded way.
Yeah. Something that you said I feel like needs to be highlighted because it's so interesting. And that is that when we're sort of straddling these two worlds between mind-centered communication and heart-centered communication, there is this like falling off of the thoughts that makes you look like you're entering your dimensional phase, dementia phase, and dimensional. So yeah, I think that this is something that we need to talk about because we need to normalize it so we don't all think that we're losing it. Megan, can you speak to that at all? Not that that's your specialty, but um,
Well, yeah, yes, I can make this work.
well, let me ask you a different question. Tell me how you felt about the year behind us. What was what was on your heart?
The year behind us was very different for me because it wasn't a year where I wove in tremendous amounts of intention and goal setting, and it was definitely like get in the lazy river, lay on the raft, and just see where you go. I didn't. I had the luxury of not working, professionally formally working. So sort of being retired, moving, building this like homestead. So it was very heart centered. And the, and this past year, one of the things that I actually had a very large struggle with was guilt. That I am happy, I am content, I don't have work stress, I have immense amounts of joy and health and peace. And while it would seem that the world is on fire, our communities, different pockets of our communities are on fire. What do I do with this that I'm really doing great, and that, so there was that. And part of what I did, I'm very seasonal. I realize how seasonal I am. And I had these seasons, and the first season was like very intergalactic, interdimensional, very much like Earth escapism. Okay, I'm a star seed. I'm not made for this Earth. I'm not made for this time. I can't do this, right? So I'm just going to get cosmic because it was a bit of escapism. And then I really got into the next like wave, the next season was absolutely nature, because my yard exploded where I moved and I had no other choice. It was given. And I've always had, a connection to nature. So there was a familiar wave for me. And then the next wave was one of what my friend Steph Martin would call the queendom, this like really feminist, like crescendo, like we can't like fight the patriarch anymore. Like it's not about that. It's like we got to let the language even go. Like if we don't want the patriarch, why do I keep talking about it?
Yeah.
Like so this empowerment mode is like take my throne, put on my crown. It's got nothing to do with anything other than empowerment of women. And has been and will always be a thread in my evolution through the seasons. But I kind of have landed at the end of the year in this place of, oh, like oh, I really need to connect to humans. Like, that's really like, again, here I go again. Like, let's get back down to the basic. And for me, what I see as the collective struggle, and I know I'm kind of going back to that preceding question, but in our community, the things that I see our community struggling with, besides just being being anchored in light and continuing this work, is that there's the attack of spiritual materialism is really like at a high. The beauty culture, like, where the heck did this come from? We just came through, like, what some would say, like, diet culture, and now there's this like crazy beauty culture where, like, I'm like, aren't we done with this? Didn't we already do this? Like, how are we here again as a collective? So, how do I satisfy this agenda of, like, oh, I don't want to wear polyester anymore and like have toxic materials, and I want to like clean up, but this is consumerism now. If I replace all my clothes, right? And I'm actually feeling really stressed out about all the poison. And so I feel like, what the collective and the personal, transition in this transition of years is one of, am I really ready to do this? Am I really ready to stop buying clothes and, never, like, what is the deeper level of work here? Like, can we switch all of our produce to come from local regenerative farms like this? But it's not this technical evolution. It's this, like, stepping back into simplicity that is just really challenging. And so that's what I want to exemplify moving forward, is how do we find joy by stepping away from this, like, healing themed consumerism? How do we just do a yoga class and just do yoga and not have anything crazy and profound happen? We just did yoga and we walk away. So that's kind of, I don't know if I answered the question, but that's what's coming through.
That's incredible. And we assume that when you want to simplify, that it's going to be easy, and that's obviously not the case. And I feel like between 2025 and 2026, there's all this opportunity to be even more punishing, of yourself about what you are and are not doing, and whether you're living up to your ideals. And I'm thinking that 2026 is hopefully leading us a little deeper onto that path, that of more self-love and more acceptance, and realizing that really the only way to significantly change things is incrementally, slowly, mindfully, thoughtfully. So thank you so much for that. I want to ask Cerise, about how you saw, your own life in 2025 and what the lessons were for you.
Um, so much shifted and changed for me in 2025, where I thought I was gonna, be running this wellness center, and that was gonna be the primary focus, from a career perspective. Um, and it didn't turn out to be what was right for me. And so, yeah, I think for me, it was about taking all the lessons and everything that I learned from the experiences, um, and looking at them not as failures, not and lessons. And, as long as and so that's been like my exercise, is looking at everything that happened and what did I learn from each of the experiences, from a people perspective, from a relationship perspective, from a family perspective, what worked, what didn't work, what can I do different or better, and really focus on, you know, my mission, what I'm supposed to be doing, how I'm supposed to be taking care of myself and my family. And what came through loudly for me when I reflected back on 2025 was, two main areas. One is um, learning and understanding that I'm a people pleaser that I didn't really understand or know previous to, taking the time to think about it. Even though people have told me that, I was like, they don't, I'm not a people pleaser. But really seeing it more clearly as I reflected. But knowing that I have to establish better boundaries because I'm not good at that. So that was one area, and using my voice, and that using my voice is okay. And again, that conflict with being a people pleaser, yet using my voice, not wanting to make people uncomfortable and not wanting to set those boundaries and, wanting to be, free and relaxed. So, there's this confluence of all of these different ideas and things that I have been reflecting on and really, letting them sit with me. And I don't remember who mentioned it earlier. I think it might have been Jade, but paying attention to my body, and my body is telling me and giving me signals of, when I have this, feeling in the gut of my stomach, listen to it. If I'm around someone, and that my gut is kind of making that feeling, pay attention to it. This might not be someone that I'm meant to be, you know,
Mm.
establishing a business relationship with or a friendship with, or, and start really tuning in more to those things because my body is talking to me. So as I reflect back, those are the different things, the boundaries, the using my voice, and looking at all of the lessons that I learned to make 2026 and a lot of things ended and closed, which is I think how it was supposed to go with 2025 being a nine, and entering into 2026, a one where I'm looking at it as new beginnings and how things are shifting. So I think everything in 2025 happened exactly how it was meant to happen for me, accepting that, acknowledging that, and, looking to making 2026 an amazing year.
Mm. I love that. I especially love the spotlight on permission to pivot because I think that is also one of the things that humanity didn't really allow itself in previous generations, and now it's becoming clear that that permission to pivot is really being in flow and listening to all the cues and that you're receiving from within. Let's see. Ashley, I wanted to ask you what you will be leaving behind in 2025 and what you'll be carrying forward, maybe shifting it, expanding it. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I it was such an interesting year, personally, and paying attention to my body. I feel like that's been a theme in this conversation, is paying attention to your body, paying attention to how you're feeling in different spaces. So that was my word for last year, was embodiment. And what I found was a crash course in really paying attention to the nuances and the subtleties of my body and the things that I desire. So I feel like what I'm what I'm sort of releasing in with this year is ignoring that subtle awareness that I have within my body, and trusting that more. And what I'm really calling forward in this year is health, and not just physical health. I'm looking at mental health, emotional health, like soulful health. And I think it was something that Sage had said, is like, it all of it requires presence, all of it requires a deep awareness. I know a lot of people are talking about the horse energy right now and that it's a fire horse year, but it's like, if you're not careful, horses are afraid of paper bags. That paper bag blows into the path and they're going to freak out and want to go in the opposite direction. So yes, there's a power in the horse, but it's also a prey animal. It's not a predator. So it is very, very aware of its surroundings. It's very, very aware of the direction that it wants to go. And it calls forth community. It calls forth its herd. And each person in that herd knows its role and knows its position. So I'm kind of looking at it from that space when it comes to health, and what I'm calling forward in 2026 is, who am I spending my time with? What is the internal dialogue that I'm having when I'm all alone and no one else is there? Am I going to be scared by the paper bag that comes in that's just a distraction, or am I going to really allow for myself to be in my body and notice when the hypervigilance comes, and notice when I'm in rest and relaxation or even play? So that's how I'm feeling about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. I also have had the practice of choosing a word for the year, and last year my word was celebrate, and my intention was to celebrate, like as though that was going to draw to me reasons to celebrate. And there were some, but interestingly, I immediately after creating a board with the word celebrated on it, that board disappeared and it has never shown up. I have no idea what happened to it. And 2025 was honestly one of the most difficult years of my life. And so this year, I've decided rather than trying to force my experience into some form or fashion, that I'm going to sit back and allow my life to tell me where my focus should be, whether it should be on celebration or work or relationships
Mm.
or nature or whatever, food, whatever it may be. And so I want to get to a point where I'm acting so intuitively and I'm so connected with my divine light that I'm listening in every moment. So we'll see what happens. I'll tune in next year and I'll let you know how it goes. I would like to ask Sage this. I would actually like to ask everybody this question. We will begin with Sage, or continue with Sage. And that is the same question I asked Ashley. What are you leaving behind, and what are you carrying forward with whatever energy needs to be shifted? Sage.
So I think the main things that I'm leaving behind is worry and doubt. Um, I tend to be a warrior. And I'm like, okay, warrior to warrior, maybe it's just a slight change of energy right there. Um, but those are the main things I want to leave behind. And what I want to bring forth is more like that feminine energy, because in 2025, I would say I had to have a lot of masculine energy. The reason being is that I'm the one who's supporting my family financially mainly. So, I had to be that go-getter, I had to make sure I had clients regularly, that sort of thing. But at the same time, at the second half of the year of 2025, I was able to connect more to that femininity in terms of music, play, dancing, movement. So I want to bring more of that into 2026. And like you said, Kay, is not necessarily not guiding, but forcing myself into, healing or a word, or boxing myself into a specific thing, but just really subtly listening internally, because I feel like this stuff is so subtle. And, for me, I have to come into that stillness. I have to get into a meditative state to really access that. Like, what is it that, I want? What is it that I'm feeling into, that I want to bring into 2026? I don't want to box myself up either. So I think this is going to be a continuous practice for me, like, maybe every hour, every day, just tapping into that and just seeing, where I need to go.
Beautiful. Thank you. I want to go to Jenny because I would love for you, Jenny, to tell us answer the question, but also to kind of address this issue of women and work. And
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah. So That's big. We could spend a whole hour on that conversation, women in work. And I relate to Sage, having spent many years being the primary breadwinner for my family, and how that impacted polarity. I'm married to a man with, that polarity as he was taking care of our son and doing some other things. And then the pressure on me and how that had an impact on our intimate life, like so many things. It was like, whoa, 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 right? And I know this stuff because I do this work professionally, and yet being in it, and noticing again that part of me that can take on that masculine and go. And then what happens is that connection to the feminine, the season of, the arc of where I am in my moment as a woman. I'm 52. So what's happening in my body at 52? Also the season outside, right? Like I've spent my entire adult life ignoring the seasons outside and just like, I got to get clients, or I got to do this, even though there's 9 hours of sunlight or 7, it doesn't matter. You still need to get up and do the thing. And so, women in work is so big. And again, because I work with so many women who are the primary breadwinner, and how it is that impacts their intimacy, their eros, their ability to connect with their body. And, often, and I understand this having been there, them saying to me, I can't listen to my body. I can't prioritize pleasure right now because I have bills to pay and I need to do thing. Or the women who I serve who are single moms, I have these things that I need to do. And that's such something I would love to double click on sometime with this panel. It could be a really rich conversation, and the ripple of impact that has in so many spheres of our lives. To that end, to answer the question about part of what I'm going to say, I'm going to leave it. Well, let's see. It might last 5 minutes. Is the feeling like I need to know, right? Like I need to know what my word is, or that I'm going to do this thing. As I look back, and this is the beautiful, rich part of being in midlife, and having a quarter left, if I'm lucky, God willing, that I can look back and say so much of what I worried about, not only did it not happen, the things that I thought I could create and do that I would love, actually, not so great. Like it's so I'm playing with, what if I spend the next 25 years, 30 years not needing to know, right? Allowing myself, like you nodded towards, Kay, staying in the flow of, okay, this is what's happening now because my conditioning has been, this is what's happening now. I'm going to grip it, right? Like hold it because it better keep happening this way. Or if I don't like it, I'm trying to like change it. And so that's what I'm playing with, is allowing the unknown, and surfing with the unknown.
Oh, I love that so much. And yes, double click on women in work as a potential future topic. Megan, let's hear from you about what you're carrying forward and what you're leaving behind.
All right. What I'm leaving behind is the consumer, and what I'm carrying forward is the creator. And that has been that's a never-ending cycle of work. And the consumer, quite literally, things like clothes, or like I don't Uber Eats, but like things like that, like the consumer that's obvious, that kind of consumer, but also consuming other people's lives. If you're not right there with me, I probably need to stop consuming everyone's lives, looking at them, right? Because then now I'm judging it. Now I'm like comparing, and like I'm like, how the heck am I a sucker for this? Like oh my gosh. Anyway, so the media, but I love what Jenny said, consuming the need to know. Little busybody, like watching everybody all the time. Like I love you all, but I can feel you. Like I already know you're there, right? Like just to anyway. So release the consumer and carry forward the creator. And the creator for me is certainly like the literal. Like I will record music, and I will start teaching again. I've already sent my resume out to do some events. I haven't really taught since the retreat I did in Sedona over a year ago. And through that, I have an open door policy with the inner mystic. There are things happening, there are things brewing. I'm not always 100% sure what's happening. I feel like I actually feel energy coming out of my hands. I think I'm supposed to like be doing something. I think it's the Ozarks. I feel very strongly that I've been placed here in the Ozarks, and that came as a huge surprise to me. So part of that creator is also to connect to the earth and let like the Ozarks literally speak through me mystically. I feel that is that's coming in 26. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Lisa, or actually Jade. Sorry, Lisa. Jade. Let's hear from Jade. Excuse
Yeah.
me.
So obviously it would be silly for me to say like I'm letting go of fear because that's always a process. But I definitely think 2025 taught me to kind of leave behind certain levels of fear or programming around what I was afraid of that was keeping me contorted, even when I thought it was keeping me free. So, for example, my fear, I've been on in this spiritual community, like a self-employed, like whatever, for a while, and I was so afraid to be back, like working for somebody because to me that would be a fear of my freedom being taken away. I was afraid to make some more business decisions because I've made some bad ones in the past that we had to work through. Um, I was, even for what meant to serve, I'm actually starting social work in the foster system, but I was so afraid to go into a system that I know has so many challenges and constraints. Like when I was in the medical field for 10 years, I got so wanted to leave it behind because I saw the insurance constraints, like what providers were doing. Like it just felt like I couldn't serve the way that I wanted. And so it really it was fearful for me to go into a system where I knew I would be almost feeling up against a lot of boxes and constraints. And then I just realized, and I was afraid of certain medical things, of going back to the Western medical field because I'm sorry, for my own health. Um, as I'm talking about fear, I just have to name this. My body's reacting very strongly right now. So I just have to share that. My heart's beating, and so I can't be as articulate as I'd want because at the same time, I'm flushing through the fear somatically. Um, but even with my health, I do have some health challenges that I deal with, but I was so afraid for them, right? And now it's like what I'm going into 2026 is facing what's real and what's true. Okay, I'm going into a system. I know what I'm going up against, at least I think I do, and I believe that I can fall into my own capable arms, and there's a reason. Okay, I'm having health challenges. How do I just look it so directly on and be like, this is what we're tackling, and it's going to take both possible containers of Western and more natural medicine. Okay, I'm gonna make I'm moving into an antique booth tomorrow at an antique dealership. This is something fun. But I've wanted to do this for years and years. And I thought, oh, I don't want to make this, investment. But I'm like, I freaking want to. And I've made some bad decisions before and I've made some good ones. Let's just see what this is. At least I'm having a lot of fun. But so I'm going into 2026 just like believing in my own capable essence of like I'll let go when I need to, and I'll move forward when it's right. And I'm not going to let fear tell me what I can and can't do. And that's kind of a little bit about that.
Jade's going to be the boss. I'm the boss of fear. Lisa, how about you?
Okay, am I muted?
No.
No. Okay. Um, I just loved everyone's reply. It's so wonderful. And I love seeing the sort of thread of sameness that goes through everyone. We're all just looking for that relief to like take off the weighted vest. Oh my gosh. And for me, what I'm leaving behind, I don't really know how to say it other than it is the antithesis of what I'm stepping into, which is I'm going to be stepping into situations and every decision, every prayer, every conversation with the confidence in the competency of my soul, which I think I neglected to do or just didn't have the programming yet or whatever it was. Um, and I can feel it in my body when I even just, lean into that as a way of being, that everything is going to be fine. Like Jade just said, she had this beautiful articulation of, I'm not going to be able to say this right because I'm actually moving through the sludge right now. And that happens to me quite frequently. And so rather than just think that I need to have this sort of intellect or some sort of power in some other way, just step in and understand that my soul knows exactly what I'm doing, that I'm deeply connected to the divine. And that's it.
Love that. I think that I just want to say one thing about this speed of transformation that both you and Jade are speaking to is that this is our reality, and we have to get used to our power and realizing for the good and the bad that when we speak something, when we think something, it's happening way faster than it has in the past. So we're going to learn to be really up against the dashboard with that, like so thank you for highlighting that. Let's see, Cerise, how about you?
So I'm leaving behind in 2025, self-doubt, um, that people pleaser that I used to be, working toward leaving that behind, and any self-sabotage that I had, and bringing into 2026 um, empowerment and more love, kindness, joy, and fun.
Mm, awesome. I think that this kind of like overarching theme here, well, it is for me anyway, is that somebody asked me recently what I was grateful for, and the thing that immediately popped into my heart was God's confidence in me, because I'm here and I'm doing this. And so God must have some confidence in me, and I'm just going to go with that. And if I lack my own confidence, I'm going to let God's confidence stand in for me. So there's that. I would like Ashley to speak a little to the incoming energy of 2026. You spoke about it a little bit with the paper bag analogy, and I'm wondering if you have anything to add to that, and maybe personally, like what you're hoping for the collective as part of that.
Um, yeah, I think it's just kind of paying attention to uh the beauty of nature, the beauty of, again, thinking of the horse analogy and just kind of paying attention to this physical embodiment. I don't have anything additional to share, but I will say in regards to hope, I really love what you shared, Kay, in regards to this confidence in God and this confidence in kind of leaning into that particular energy. And that's what I hope for everyone. I hope it for myself and everyone else as well, is because that feels so much better. One of the things that I've been really alchemizing lately is worry, which I think is a form of fear. And worry has such a control mechanism to it that if you can shift that into confidence in someone else's higher self, that they're that individual is being guided on their path, and that your worry is not a frequency that's supporting them in any way, shape, or form, that's you trying to control something or trying to disrupt something in some way. uh, so I really like the idea of just having this confidence in God.
Beautiful. Thank you. Let's go to wait, am I done with yeah, okay, so that let's see, what do I want to do here? Um, Jenny, can you speak to a little bit about what you're hoping for the collective and what you feel is the incoming energy?
I what I'm seeing is this more of a willingness to be in this place of the unknown. Again, to kind of circle back to what I shared a few minutes ago, that because the old paradigm hasn't been working, there's more of a willingness, or I feel like we've been readying ourselves to be in this place of, I don't know how it's going to go. And there are lots of people around me who also don't know, because they're leaving careers, they're homesteading, they're doing things really off the map. And so what I hope is that we recognize that we're all here to really live in and through our own template, that time of comparison, like Megan shared, right? Consuming other people's lives, like we're just stuffed. We're all just over full of information and we don't need it, whether, information, clothes, stuff, storage units, just like all the things. And we're heavy with that as a collective. And so my hope is, and certainly what I'm practicing in my life, and I was laughing, Megan, because as you were talking, I literally was like, oh, I should go consignment shopping after this call. And then you said that, and I was like, oh, wait, maybe not. But it's that pattern interrupt, right? Because it's like an activity, right? It's an activity to do, but the new activity is to be in my life. Not that there's anything wrong with shopping, right? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but how it can be a distraction from being in my life, just like scrolling. And so my hope is that we really become more analog, right? And be with the earth and the trees and your neighbor. I try to stay informed 5 miles around where I live. Like that's my radius. And that's what my nervous system can hold and be with, is like literally what's happening on the land here. And I think people are hungry for that, but we just are so used to getting those dopamine hits of the ripple from so far out that there's a titration that's needed for us to shift back into ourselves. So that's my hope. Analog is my dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that we also probably need to reacquaint ourselves with boredom the way we did as children.
Yeah.
And if you can remember your childhood experience of boredom, sometimes it was painful, but there was something birthed in those opportunities to
Yes.
usually create some fun or some silly game or whatever. Sage, can you talk a little bit about what you see will be our challenges moving forward into 2026? And what are some of like the practices and resources we can call in?
Yeah. I think one of the main challenges that we're going to face is trying to see other people's humanity, um, because there's so much like ugliness out in the world right now that we're seeing, violence, anger, hatred. And so I think the challenge is going to be to be able to connect to each other on a human level and to see that, we're all really the same, inside. It's a huge challenge because of, all of these shifts that, everything that's happening right now in the world, and possibly, that war, violence, energy. And it's so easy to put people in that box, of monster. I hear people say, oh, that person's a monster, and we miss the humanity of a person when we label them that. So I think that's going to be our biggest challenge going into 2026 on an individual level, collective level, those different levels. And I think, the resources, when I think about resources, I think about grounding. It's really important for us to be able to find ground, connecting to nature, the earth, small practices, somatically grounding, even sitting in my chair right now, I usually ground before I see clients, and make sure that I am centered. So those practices are going to be really helpful. I think I made a few notes here. And I think discernment is the other one, bringing in discernment, choosing carefully what our actions are going to be. But before we do that, I think we need to really connect to insight. That's why I love insight meditation, because you could sit with yourself to really connect to insight, connect to wisdom, and then take that wise action, out. So I think that will be a practice that will be very helpful for people. And just keep seeing our own shadows, just keep looking at them. It's very difficult to see our own shadows. We don't like to see those. But if we can see them and bring them to the light, we can kind of going back to that humanity thing. We can see that we're all, the same. We all have these seeds of hatred and anger and violence, even inside. So once we connect to that, we can say, yeah, we're all in the same boat. And, what can we do to make this world like a better place?
Yeah. I think we have a lot to learn as a collective about our energy, our individual energy and our collective energy, and being able to distinguish between the two, because I feel like a lot of people take on into their energy field, into their body, the energies that are occurring out in the world. And that can be very disruptive and destructive to the well-being. And I think we need to learn that that's an option. That's optional. We can understand what's happening in the world without taking it in and making it a part of us. So I think those kinds of things become apparent during meditation. It's like, oh, this worry or this fear actually isn't mine. It doesn't belong to my life. I've adopted it from some other situation. So thank you for sharing that. Um, let's see. Megan, can you speak to practices that are going to be helping you in the new year?
Was surprised. Gardening. I will be gardening. I've recommitted to dancing, dancing alone, dancing with friends, just dancing as much as possible. Uh, I've even noticed, like, I have a dog, a Chihuahua, who'll have some anxiety, and anytime I start to dance, she wants to be picked up and she wants to dance with me. I hold her when I'm dancing alone at home, 9 out of 10 times she wants to be there. So I feel like literally she wants my heartbeat, my heart frequency. She's feeding off of it. So that has been really powerful practice. In the in 2026, I feel one of my practices is going to be more singing. I know that's not really different than dancing, but a lot of singing and singing with friends and singing with strangers and giving people permission to sing, because it is of course throat chakra work. It's historically been really important work for me. I used to lose my voice all the time, and singing has brought me out of that literal, like, physical losing my voice, but on every other level as well. So I just really want people to sing, and I want them to understand that when someone reminds you to take a breath, it's also an invitation to sing, because when you sing, you're forced to breathe as well. So I just really see a lot of music and a lot of nature and a lot of mysticism being available for it. It doesn't need to be grand. It doesn't need to be interstellar. um, I'm ready for this very humble mystic to be one of my tools.
Beautiful. Thank you. I agree with you that singing, chanting, dancing are going to be our superpowers in the future for sure. Cerise, how about you? What do you see? What do you feel like are your personal opportunities, and what are the collective opportunities?
Um, I'm going to start with the collective because I feel like I've spent a lot of time talking about personal. Um, Collective, when you started this conversation, we were talking about anchoring the light. And from a collective, from what I've been seeing and hearing, a lot of people are looking for community. They're looking for that togetherness. So I see a lot of that coming into 2026. Like-minded individuals getting stronger together. and making a difference together, whether it's informal or formal gatherings, whether it's live in person or if it's, using technology. Obviously, I think, if possible, I think live is amazing. Um, uh, but I see so many opportunities for gatherings, and working together and anchoring the light in that way. Um, so translating that into the personal, I've gotten reacquainted with a bunch of friends from 15 years ago, and it started with a couple of dinners, and now, we've been getting together almost every week, a group of about, 8 to 10 women, um, and it feels like it's going back in time to when, when you think of the red tent and you think of all those things, how women were always together. And, it's an opportunity to share. It's an opportunity to get advice from one another. We're all going through the same things, and there's guidance and there's love. And you're able to be your true, authentic self with one another, and you don't feel that judgment. And so, what I'm bringing into 2026 is more of that community, more of that togetherness, more of that sacredness that I feel has been lost because we've been running at such fast paces for so long that, it's time to try and slow things down a little bit and take that breath together, and be there for one another.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Jade, I was wondering if you have any practices or resources that you would like to bring to the fore.
Yeah. Um, I think that finding a good mix of like steady anchors, which is like a disciplined structure, along with creating so much room for flow. Because I've done both before. I've done like have to do all these things and these practices and meditations and prayers or whatever. And then I've also done where I'm just gonna like see how I feel that day. And so I've created this kind of system where I have these guide points like I'm doing DBR, which is like deep brain reorienting, which has been really helpful for me. But I have one a month, and then I have one acupuncture month that's like spread in between there. And then I create the flow within those like checkpoints, which I believe is going to really help me because, yes, it's great to go by the flow, or sometimes if my cycle comes early, like I'm not going to want to go to that class, like I'm going to rest. And so there's space for that, but there's also scaffolding because we know how life gets in the way sometimes. And so if I don't have something scheduled, then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, my nervous system is, totally at capacity. So I think that maybe a mix of that because what I feel like this year is I feel like it's just the wholeness, right? It's like unity consciousness within and without, which means it's not just one way or the other. It's how can we hold all of what we've learned in a really good harmony? And I don't even believe it's about balance anymore because that feels like the energy of still going. I think it's harmony, right? Where it's like, how can we take, and I think many of you have spoke about this, how can we take what we've learned and kind of create this song and dance of our own personal experience? Um, and I think we're all going to be really leaning into that. A lot of even like the community, what this is a little bit of a tangent, Kay, but what I'm noticing for myself is, I mean, I love community. That's been such a huge thing for me. However, pulling in the discernment and a group of community that's owning their own energy and we're owning our boundaries. So it's a really co-creative environment that we're looking at like the herds, the honeybees, the dolphins, like how do they work interdependently together? Because I've noticed that I've been missing community and I've been trying to find some here, but it's draining me because yes, I know my own boundaries, but I'm looking for community that really is owning what's theirs to own. So when we all come together, it really is a harmony or a symphony. So that's a little bit about that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Lisa, can you take us out here with some of your hopes and dreams for yourself and the collective, and maybe a little bit about what you're creating or being in the new year?
Yes, my hope for myself is similar to the collective. It's just authenticity that we start carving, the masterpiece of our life, toward what we feel most called to do and um really surrendering into that place that understands how to hear what we're called to do, because it is no longer about performance or anything like that. Instead, just surrendering to what brings me joy, what is joyful. Right next to that, of course, is what can be of service, though even that has been recalibrated. Sometimes I'll see the way people are out serving in the world, and I used to think to myself, I don't have the finances or the time or the energy or whatever to do that. But instead, dropping into that joyful place in the heart provides the light that shows me, that guides me. How can I be in service? Um, so I think it's just that it's really surrendering into the authenticity and being able to hear what exactly that means. Um, Singing also, everyone was talking about singing, and I've been turning people onto this. I can't remember the YouTube channel. Maybe I can send it to you, Kay, and you can put it in like a link.
Hmm.
But I've been telling that to my clients and my friends as well, and doing it myself. Well, how do I start? My voice is terrible, whatever it is, and just empower. It's just a very simple um, YouTube channel where this gentleman plays the guitar in this really beautiful, slow, melodic, and hums for 10 minutes, and you just hum along with it in your car or whatever. And once complete, I mean, my face looks radiant afterwards. So I've been kind of filtering this really um, simple little thing in that way. Just
Wow, wow.
yeah,
Thank
something
you
simple.
so much. Thank you for sharing that. And we will link that in the show notes. And if anybody else has any of those little treasures that they rely on, please send them to me and I will make sure to include them. I want to thank all of you for your incredible wisdom and generosity for being with us here today and sharing all that you are and all that you do. And it's such an honor to facilitate such an incredible panel of heart-centered angels and lights. And so thank you all very much for coming and being here. And thank you to everyone listening. And we look forward to more exciting topics in the future. Bye, everybody. Let's see.